Hey guys, it's Marcus here, and welcome back to betterdaybuilder.com. Today we have a special book review for you, and it's about Your One Word by Evan Carmichael. And actually, I had seen this guy on YouTube before, but I didn't know he had a book out until his assistant wrote me and asked if we could do a review on the book. And to my surprise, it was an awesome book. Not that I didn't expect it or anything, but I didn't really know what to expect, but it turned out being a very, very good book. Now, for those of you who are entrepreneurs or you want to create a business or do something in your life different than what you're doing now, this is a perfect book for you. And we're going to talk about what the one word is and what his advice and his tips are for those of you who are out there and you want to get to the next level in life and in business, but you just simply don't know what to do or how to get there. And this book is kind of like a manual or a blueprint for that exact thing, right? If you want to do something more, and that's what he says, hey, it's a powerful secret for creating a business and life that matter. So I believe that this works for business and life. Hopefully we don't get attacked by this squirrel here. I heard they can be pretty mean. He's trying to come over here. But at any rate, this works very good for business and life, not just business alone, because sometimes you just need to define what you're about, and it's kind of like that whole idea of finding yourself and everything like that. So let's go ahead and dive into Your One Word by Evan Carmichael. First off, he goes through the introduction. And for those who watch these, I actually do read these books cover to cover. I don't skim or skip around or anything like that. I do like to go through them cover to cover. It usually only takes about 3 hours or so to get through a book like this, but there's a lot you can take away. That's why I don't like the skimming thing, because sometimes you're going to miss the gems and you're going to miss the whole point of what the author is trying to take you through. And I believe that this one is definitely one you need to go on the journey with Evan. You need to take it and go each section by each section. Now, one thing I do want to disclaimer though, towards the end of the book, he gets into the nitty-gritty of what to me looks like a big operations thing, like hiring people and stuff like that. That part you can get through pretty quick if it doesn't apply to you, but the first 2/3 of the book are awesome. Highly, highly recommended. So let's go ahead and dive in here. Hopefully this is working well. It's our first outdoor book review, so hopefully it comes out good. Let me know what you guys think. I got a backup camera here just in case this stuff doesn't work quite right. So in the introduction, he says, quote by Regina Brett, he says, "No one really has a bad life, just bad moments." And this is important to me because a lot of times people define life, they define who they are by the moments that make up their life. You know, they have a bad week, therefore they think they're doing bad or they're not happy or whatever it is. And oftentimes we do this, right? Instead of defining ourselves and saying, this is who I am, and that's what he gets into. He talks about, hey, some of these things are moments. That doesn't define you. That doesn't make you who you are. That doesn't make your life some kind of thing that it's not. He says here in the introduction, page XIV, whatever that is in Roman numerals, he says if you're doing something just to make money, it's easy to quit. Now this is something I see with a lot of my students, a lot of my customers, right? They get into this business just to make money. That's their sole goal. They don't care what they do, right? If they could just push a button and money would go into their account, they do that. And a lot of people in life are like that, and they think that money would solve a lot of their problems. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that, you know, money does solve some problems. It helps you buy things and money stress and everything like that. But if you're looking for it to define who you are, or that's the only reason you're doing this, then you're going to be sadly mistaken and led down the wrong path. He says in the next page, he says, I had hit my bottom and I needed to find a way to get momentum, right? How do we get momentum? How do we get there? Now, I like this because he equates the idea of hitting bottom with the idea of getting momentum, which means that, okay, if you are in a place where you think, hey, you know what, I'm kind of on the rocks here, I'm kind of having trouble, I'm having a bad moment, as he says earlier, he says, hey, check it out. The only thing that you need to do is start getting the ball rolling. Start to make momentum. Start to push forward. Start to get where you want to go, taking little steps, changing each moment, and looking at everything as in terms of like defining who you are and everything like that. He goes on in page 5 to say, if it's not important enough to you, then you won't do anything about it. Right? Talking about little things in life. It's like, okay, if it's not that important to you to work from home or start a business or be a good family person, then you're probably not going to do it and you're not going to stick with it. On page 6, he goes on to say that your limiting mindset is holding you where you are. Now, we talk about this a lot in my other videos where we talk about limiting beliefs and limiting mindset, right? What is the limit that you have on your mindset and your belief? Is there something that's holding you back? Something that you believe that might not be true, or something that you believe that other people told you? Right? Again, he goes into page 9. He says, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Now, this is a big one because a lot of people get into goals and they say, you know, what's the deal here? How do we do this? And sometimes you have to take the first step. You have to go on a journey without knowing every step, every turn along the way, because, you know, life is a journey like that. Sometimes we go through and things don't turn out as we want, and sometimes they turn better. Now, this is where he gets into what I like to call like the bringing of the old business ideas into today's modern internet, right? Because we have old ideas in business. Those who have been around a while, it's like, okay, attention, interest, desire, action, the AIDA rule. We also have things like what was it, your selling point, the way you define your business. I forget the term. What was it called? Unique selling proposition. They talk about a USP, right? What is your sentence that defines your company, what you're offering, and things like that. And he goes through and he talks about this, which I find really important because, you know, some of that stuff's like outdated. Some of that stuff was in the factory days, in the days of restaurants, brick and mortar business, where marketing and advertising was a lot different, right? I couldn't just like sit out here in my backyard with cameras and make a living back then. And we look at that and we say, well, what is it that we do to bring it into today? And he talks about this. He says on page 11, you know, we have feature selling, which is like selling the features. Okay, here's what it is, right? These sheets have a 300 count sheet thing or whatever, right? Or he says, well, that would be feature selling. Okay, this car has economy gallons, this light bulb's going to last forever. Then he says there's benefit selling, which is like, okay, well, the benefit is these sheets are soft, so you're going to get a better sleep. And then he goes into what he calls core selling, right? Selling from your core. What's the core value? Okay, this is where it starts to get really good, and he talks about finding your one word, which is in fact your core. And he says the secret is to realize, for this guy trying to sell flowers, he says the secret's to realize he wasn't selling flowers, he was selling a mood, he was selling a feeling, he was selling something important. And he goes on to say that this isn't just a marketing strategy, it's not something planned, right? A lot of things you'll find, like a lot of people look at my videos and they write me and they're like, wow, that was brilliant how you did that. And half the time I'm not even like trying to do this stuff. It just happens naturally because I'm working from a place of who I am and what I believe in. Now he goes on to say in page 14 that people have these ideas, right? They have these ideas of what they want to do, whether they want to change the way something is done, whether they want to have an impact, or whether they want to leave a legacy, right? And he says to be successful as an entrepreneur, you need to build a business around your passion and use your one word as your operating philosophy, right? What is it that the one thing that you want to do, right? And he's talking about all this and he's like, okay, you know, you have these people who try to do this stuff and they don't think that big, they don't have their one word, they don't know why they're doing this in the first place. And he says, you might be thinking, well, that's great, Evan, give me $1 billion and I'll go, you know, save the world as well. And he says that's exactly why you're not successful. And this is something interesting. It actually goes back to an old biblical principle of doing the little things, right? It's kind of the idea of what you do now is what you're going to do later. If you're the kind of person who goes out and helps people now, even if you don't have a lot, you're going to be that same person later. But if you're the kind of person who hoards and squanders and tries to get what's yours and you're not looking out for people, money's just going to amplify that, right? You're just going to be the same person with a bunch of money, and maybe you'll give it away, maybe you won't. But the point is, you're taking you with you. All right, so now he gets in here and he talks about the one word, right? He goes into the story of his one word and how he had trouble in business, he had trouble in life, and he said, well, what's the one word that would define me? And he says, don't pick 2 or 3 words, right? Don't pick a sentence. Pick one thing that defines you, one simple word that would sum up what it is, right? And we're going to talk about this in a minute, because actually going through this, I went through the process and I came up with what I believe is my one word. And we're going to talk about it, and we'll show you the new logo and everything for that as well. So he says, most people waste their lives living someone else's dream. They imprison themselves by accepting the results of other people's thinking. Right? How often are we accepting the results of other people's thinking? People who say, you can't, you won't, you're not good enough, that takes time, that takes money, you're not the kind of person, or whatever, and you're accepting the limiting beliefs that other people have placed on you. Another one we have here on page 33, he says, so they decided to be the change they wanted to see in the world. Right? A lot of people, you'll notice, right? Something happens in politics or something happens in life, and they all go and talk about it on social media. Right? They talk about how bad this guy is, how bad that guy is, but they never get up and actually do something about it. Right? How many things do we see in life that need to get done, but we don't do them? Okay, we don't do them because we're afraid, we need money, or we think we need it, or whatever. Now, this is the part I really like on page 38. He starts, and he actually includes an experience in here. He's like, okay, look, I know a lot of other books tell you to make lists and things like that, and that's all fine and great, but this one you really need to do, and you need to do the work because you're going to have an experience, right? I really like that he included that in here because it's like, okay, you're going to have the experience, which is going to find your one word, which is going to define everything you do. Okay, and he goes in and he talks about how to find it. He says, hey, you know, what kind of things do you like? What kind of things make you happy? What do you look forward to? What's your happiness, right? What's all this stuff? He goes into that and he talks about these people who find these things, and now he goes into talking about like how all these things are connected. He's like, you know, if you go back through your life and you look at it, you're going to find all these things in your life, and there's going to be like a connecting thread, right? Maybe you're like the helping type person, and everyone comes to you for help, and you just light up when it's time to help people. Or maybe you're the kind of person who likes to get things done, right? And you're like, okay, well, let me just get this stuff done, and you're the planner or whatever. Maybe you're the kind of person who is encouraging, okay? And he says here a quote by Paul Miller on Part 2, page 41. He says, what connects your happiness? Everything you do is connected to who you are as a person, and in turn, hopefully this didn't break the audio, looks like it's still working, right? Everything you do is connected to who you are as a person, and in turn creates the person you're becoming. So everything's linked together, and he's talking about this here and saying, hey, look, you know what? Find this common thread, figure out what it is, and go deep. Like, figure out what it is for you that you want to live for, what you want your legacy to be, or whatever it is. And one note that I wrote down was kind of interesting because I was looking at how he said that his one word is believe, right? He's got it down there on the bottom. His one word is believe. And he said, you know, his whole life was about believing. And then I thought to myself about my word that I chose, and I thought, is our word connected to what we wanted someone to do with or for us? Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is you have this common thread in your life, and we'll switch cameras here. Right, I had a common thread in our life where it's going through, and all the while you have struggles, you have good times, you have things you do good at, you have things you do bad at, and all the while all this stuff's adding up. And sometimes in life, like for me, there's been certain times throughout my life I wanted someone to come by with an answer, or come by with an encouragement, or come by with some kind of challenge or something like that. And I thought to myself, what if our one word is the one thing that we wanted someone to do for us that never really happened, or maybe someone did do that for us, and we want to share that with the rest, right? And it's very important to look at it. Maybe someone gave you the courage to leave your job, or maybe you're waiting for that courage, or maybe you're waiting for the courage to do something extraordinary. And you say to yourself, man, I wish someone would come along and just be like, hey, dude, I'm going to kick your butt until you do this, right? And your word would be like, I want to be the butt kicker, or something like that, or the motivator, or something like that, right? Very important. So we look at this, and he goes through on page 52. He says, thinking good thoughts is not enough. Doing good deeds is not enough. Seeing others follow your good examples, that's enough, right? So it leads to, like, what is your core? What do you live from? What makes you tick? And he has this list of all these different things, and hopefully we can get out of the sun here. Probably not a good idea to make these videos in the sun in Central Florida, but at any rate, maybe Evan can appreciate that living in Canada where it's not that hot. That's right. Here it's pretty hot. But at any rate, we look at this, and he says, money has never made a man happy, nor never will. There's nothing in its nature to produce happiness. And he talks about this quote from Ben Franklin. Now, he goes on here, going through the process of finding out what you like, what you don't like. He says the way to, now this is a good quote for those of you looking to make money and things like that. He says on page 54, the most brilliant thing if you're trying to make money quick. He says, hey, on the flip side, the way to make a lot of money quickly is to provide a lot of value quickly. Now there's two ways to do this. One way to provide a lot of value quickly is to provide something extremely valuable, right? Like the best food in the world. Another way to make a bunch of money quickly would be to provide little value to a lot of people, like the example of fast food or something like that, right? Both things work very good. Both things, like both people are giving an immense amount of value, if you want to call fast food value. To each his own. It does provide some value to the people, otherwise they wouldn't buy it, right? Number 5, here he says, is this really who you are? Now this goes on into talking about who you are and what you want. And this reminds me of a friend we had in church who was the assistant pastor. And this guy always complained about his job. He's like, I hate listening to people. I don't like when they talk about their problems. I don't like that they are always struggling and they never get anywhere. And he's talking about this, and I'm sitting there and I'm asking the major question everyone's asking, like, dude, why are you a pastor? And he's like, well, God called me to do this. And I'm like, well, you know, I don't really think God would call you to do something that you hate, that doesn't make any sense. He'd probably call someone else that actually likes that stuff. And it goes on to look at, like, okay, well, this guy was not living true to who he really was. He wasn't doing what he really wanted to do, and therefore he's suffering, and his congregation is suffering because he's not up to par and he's like being a jerk about it, right? And so it goes to say, like, what is it you're doing? Is it something that you want to do, or is it something that you know, is aligned with your beliefs? He goes on to say that the key is putting everything in perspective. He says you are where you are because of what you believe. If you are stuck in your life, you're there because of what you believe. If you're not getting enough in your life, if you don't feel fulfilled, if you're not happy, it's because of your belief systems. I like this because in a lot of self-help and a lot of business books, there's a lot of fluff, and there's a lot of stuff that talks about, you know, hey, just fake it till you make it and everything like that. And this is like the anti-fake it till you make it, because it's like, no, figure out what you want to be and then do the steps, right? You might not be an expert in it, but you can do them, you can start. And the fact of the matter is you are where you are because of what you believe. What beliefs do you have right now that are limiting where you want to be, right? Is there something stopping you? Is there something you're harping on, or something that is in your way? And the simple way out of it is just to change your beliefs, and that will give you the challenge and the breakthrough that you need. He says, chances are it's because of your limiting personal beliefs. Again, he says on page 59, the story you tell yourself about what you can't do has hurt you for your entire life, right? What can't you do? I remember I told myself stories all about myself, like being short and not being able to do certain things because I was short, not being good at sports. But the fact of the matter is there's plenty of sports that short guys do. I just need to go and get involved in them. He says, stop being ruled by the opinions and judgments of others. How often are we being ruled by the opinions and judgments of other people? Are we listening to them? Is their voice in our head, right? We listen to that, and a lot of times there was a good teacher, I guess psychology guy, Richard Bandler, who used to say, you know, the voices in your head, you can kind of assign them, right? Like when you're driving, it's kind of like, you know, you hear your mom's voice or dad's voice or whatever in your head, and it's like kind of somewhere, right? It's like in the back seat, in the front seat, it's up here, it's wherever, and you know where it's at. And oftentimes we're living our lives with these other voices in our head saying, hey, we're being ruled by the opinions and judgments of other people, what they say, what they think, what they do, rather than what you know to be true and what you want, right? Again, finding your core, living to your core, your one word, that idea. Remember, you get to assign your own meaning to the word, right? This is about you. No one has like locked you in anything and said, this is the way it's going to be. This is where you have to be and what you have to do. He goes on page 68 to say, all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word. A lot of people think that stuff is difficult. Life is hard. Life is difficult. Business is hard. Business is difficult, but it doesn't have to be, right? He's going on to show, and he shows in his life that, hey, dude, when you live from your principle, when you live from your core, everything becomes easy because it's congruent. It's where you are. It's where you live. It's who you are and what you want to be. He goes on here, and hopefully I don't catch on fire out here in the sun. No matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. That's a quote by Robin Williams he put. Very, very good quote. And he goes on to say on page 75, people are yearning so much to find meaning and purpose in their life that when you give them an opportunity to be part of something, they jump on board, right? They're looking for meaning. That's why they jump on board like the silliest things in political campaigns that make no sense. It's like they're looking for something, right? They're bored and they want to find meaning and they don't know how to do it. And this book's pretty good at doing that, right? I like it. Let's see here. He says on page 80, there's two things, right? You owe it to yourself, number one, to try so you don't have regrets later in life, okay? The number one thing people regret is not doing something that they know they should have done. Even if they fail, they would rather do it and not get results than do it, or than not do it at all and have regrets. He says that we rarely regret the things that we try and fail at, and the upside is that we get to live our dreams, right? A lot of people think that this life thing is difficult and things are tough and things are hard, and the fact of the matter is it could be whatever you want it to be, right? It could be whatever you want it to be. You could do whatever you want to do. And we look at that and we say, well, what's the deal? He says there's 3 steps to motivation. Number 1, think about what you hate about being an employee. Number 2, think about why you started, and remember what you want to be remembered for, or focus on what you want to be remembered for. Here's some of his favorite motivating quotes. Now, this dude is like the king of quotes. Half the time I find myself underlining other people's quotes in his book, which I find weird, but it's cool that he knows his stuff, right? He knows his quotes, and it's good. And he says on page 84, great quotes can inspire you to keep going and save you in your darkest times, right? A quote, a simple talk, a simple word can break you through to where you want to go. He says the key, Oprah quote, the key is not to worry about being successful, but instead working towards being significant. He has a Tony Robbins quote, if there's no action, you truly haven't decided. Whatever happens, take responsibility, right? Take responsibility for your life and for where you're at. Goes on in page 92 about talking about your story and how business works, right? People buy from people. People follow people. And this goes into the whole idea of him explaining the way that the internet and social media has changed business as we know it. He says people buy from people. People follow people. People love people. And he says, you know, people are out there, they're begging you, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this business? Why are you doing what you're doing in your life? And he says that your story adds context, or adds value and context for your customers. He says here on page 93, when I was down, when I doubted myself, when I felt like I wasn't going to make it, I looked to other people's stories to motivate me and keep me going. Very cool, right? I mean, you can do this. Now, another thing that's really cool, he talks about once you find your word, okay, once you find your word, for his, it's believe, he says then you want to get your tribe and say, okay, well, let's name them, right? Maybe they're the believers or something. Then recognize them, say, hey, welcome, believers, and things like that, and bring them together. So he's talking about the makings for creating a business around your one word. And he shows tons of examples and everything like that, and it's really, really good and focuses on things. Now, he goes on page 112 to say, just make sure you don't say what you do. This is one of the things I didn't necessarily agree with completely, because sometimes you want to say what you do. Like if I'm making a video, I want to say, hey, this is why I'm making this video, or this is what I'm doing. And he's talking in a way of like, you know, I'm the motivator guy, or I you know, build websites, or I'm the search engine guy, or whatever. And he talks about that. And sometimes there is a time to say what you do for advertising, right? If I want to be in the phone book, I'm not going to put, you know, believe. I'm going to put, you know, personal development or marketing or whatever it is I do. So that part, you know, take it with a grain of salt. And he says, you know, find the opposite of your one word, find the anti-word, and everything like that. He says, don't think about the money you don't have, rather think about what you can do with what you do have. Goes on page 129 to say sometimes too much information isn't good. It creates too many options. He goes on in page 164, and this is where we get into all the like hiring and business day-to-day stuff, which may or may not apply, but the first half of this book is awesome. Get it, read at least the first half and go through it, find your word, and post it as a comment to this video or something like that. Let us know what you're thinking. Don't overthink it, just get one that really fits. In just a minute I'll talk to you about mine. He says, quote by Yehuda Berg, I think is how Yehuda Berg. He says, words are singularly the most powerful force available to humanity. We can choose to use this force constructively with words of encouragement or destructively using words of despair. Words have energy and power with the ability to help, to heal, to hinder, to hurt, to harm, to humiliate, and to humble. That's a lot of H's. But we look at this and it's like so much in our world, so much in life is negative, right? You post a video on YouTube and like half the comments are negative and terrible and everything like that. People don't look for the good as much as I think we can. And we have to look at this and we have to say, well, our words are powerful. What am I choosing to use them for? What am I choosing to say? And what's my one word? Because that's going to be the most powerful word that I live by. And we look at it, and that one word is going to give you motivation. Because he says, that's what I am. And he talks about how he posts it on his wall in his office and everything like that. He says how Starbucks created a language for its customers. And something interesting, they have only spent like $10 million on advertising in its first 25 years in business. Think about that, right? Their one word, the coffee or relax or whatever it is that their one word is, right? They didn't need that much advertising because the word carried itself. He talks about client engagement. He says the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Quote by Gandhi there. And then he goes on here, he's talking about, to me, it isn't client management, it's client listening and engagement. That's a quote by Christopher Gavingen. And now this goes into the industrial shift, right? In the old days, it was an industry, it was a cold, hard building making tools or whatever it is, right? It wasn't the thing that it is now. And we have to look at it as business has changed and people want something friendly. They want a face. They want something semi-entertaining and something that's going to help them. They want you. So if you're out there and you're like, well, I have a story to tell. I have a life that I want to share with people. I have something I think I can help people with. Get up off your butt, motivate yourself to go do it because the world wants to hear it. And even if they don't, even if you only reach one person, you will have learned, right? And you will have reached one life, which for most is, you know, a good achievement. But some people want to reach the whole world, like me and like Evan, right? And he says on page 6, he talks about mentors, a quote by Viggo Mortensen. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from a horse master. He told me to go slow to go fast. I think that applies to everything in life. We live as though there aren't enough hours in the day, but if we do each thing calmly and carefully, we will get it done quicker and with much less stress. All right, now he goes on here talking about mentors and things like that. Now he says, when people are genuinely happy at the success of others, the pie gets larger. When we're all happy, when we're all doing what we want to do, the pie gets larger and the bounty gets bigger. And now another thing I totally agree with him in is I personally don't believe in spending money before I'm making it. That's to say, like, I'm not going to go spend 10,000 bucks on my business advertising if I'm not making anything yet. Now, does that mean don't spend on mentors and books and learning? Absolutely not. That's silly, right? That's bettering you. So we want to look at that. He says that clarity comes with simplicity, a quote from Brendan Burchard. And he says, he talks about his business and how he was scared. And he says, the reality was I was scared out of my mind. And sometimes we need to just admit that we're afraid and do things anyway. Now, he goes on to talk about how some people in life stumble their way through success just following their instincts and doing what they feel right. And he talks about mentors and how mentors could be found in books, in audios, in talks, pretty much anywhere in life. And the cool thing is it's all at our fingertips, right? You can be here on YouTube and you can watch videos about anything. You can learn anything. And the one word idea is to find that one word and to learn what you can do, whether it's, you know, getting people healthy and your one word is healthy, or whether it's making people happy and your one word is happy. Now, the word that I chose that I wanted to share with you is, and I chose this word because this, as Evan says, is something that followed me throughout my life. It's something that I wanted people to help me with. It's something that I think the world needs more of. And it needs more of a breakthrough, right? So if you feel stuck in your life, as I know so many people do, if you feel like nothing's going right, or if you feel like there's a barrier you need to get through, my goal in my businesses is to help you get that breakthrough. And that is my goal as a person. You see, throughout life, throughout my addiction, throughout recovery, throughout all these things, I go through my life and I look at these moments, and there's always these defining moments, right? There's these defining moments we look at when things aren't going well and we're, like Evan says, at the bottom, right? And then something snaps us out of it. And for me, I always look at what that is, right? What is the defining moment that produces change? And to me, I've always been a student of that. I like, okay, what takes a person who's depressed and makes them happy? What is it that takes a person who's failing and make them succeed? What is it that takes a person who struggles with money and makes him get better with money, right? And a lot of it has to do with limiting beliefs, a lot of it has to do with the way that our mind works, and a lot of it has to do with needing a breakthrough. So if you feel like you need a breakthrough, type #breakthrough in the box below, and that is my new core focus goal with Affiliate Marketing Dude, with my addiction site, talksober.com, and with all the different things that I'm doing online, is to help as many people as possible get that breakthrough to the other side to get where they want to go. Because to me, life is a series of breakthroughs where you see yourself going one moment and boom, something happens that changes the course of everything, whether it be good or bad. You can have breakthroughs for either. And a lot of times it's just as simple as a phrase or a word or a change in thinking or motivation or something like that. And we look at that and we say to ourselves, what is it we can do to get where we want to go by helping others? So if you're ready for your breakthrough, type #breakthrough in the box below. Share this video if you enjoyed it, and go get this book, read it. Excellent book. Find your word and type your word in the boxes below. Thanks again for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot of good value out of it. Watch for more videos here. Subscribe to my channel. Let's learn how to help the world one person at a time, or a million people at a time if it suits your fancy that way. Make a living and live the life we were supposed to live. Thanks again. I'm Marcus, and here's to looking forward to your big breakthrough.